Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala rasulihil kareem. So now we're moving on to remember we said in the last lesson we had that the hadith has multiple categorizations. So the first categorization, you can categorize hadith into three categories: Sahih, Hasan, and Da'if. So before we go into the text, let me explain something to you. Who do we have here? I don't know who this person is. If this person told you something, would you believe him? What about this person? What does the long nose represent? Pinocchio. I mean, it's usul hadith, and I've only got this to make it easy to explain. I mean, you should try to have more thing, but this kind of example is just trying to make it easy. Allah forgive us if it's disrespect to the hadith, but I'm just trying to make it easy so I understand. So, Pinocchio, the Pinocchio story. So, if these people told you something, would you believe them? Why not? I mean, they might be true, but why not? They're not credible. One person's a drunkard, he might be drunk, what he heard, what he didn't hear, what he's saying. He doesn't conduct himself in a way where we can. It's not because everything he says is not going to be a lie, innit? No one person says everything's a lie. But when they lie, it's like, okay, I don't know what he says is true, what he says is not true. He's got a reputation of lying. He's known to be a liar, so I'm not going to believe him. He may be true, but you can't trust him. What about this person, Mr. Forgetful? Would you accept, would a judge accept what he says? Because he says forgetful, he forgets things. Memory is weak. So he's not going to forget everything, but some things he forgets, isn't it? So now, what has he forgotten, what he remembers? So someone's not credible, you wouldn't really want to listen, accept, especially important. If you say, oh, where's my pen? On the floor. I'm talking major issues. Yes? Like something important, the car accident. Would you accept what he says? He says something about somebody being murdered, somebody being arrested, something happening, a theft, a witness. These were not really credible. How much money did he owe? Were you there? So because they're not credible, they don't have memory. These kind of people, you'll be reluctant to accept their witness, the testimony. We have a person here, I don't know, credible. We know him. So he said something, but I never met him. So he said it, but who said he said? He said something, but who said that he said it? She said. But who did she meet? Did she meet him? Who did she hear it from? From someone. Okay. And she heard it from him, and she heard it from him, and it's okay, yeah. We know she's saying that someone said that he said that he said that he said this. But who's that person? Who's that question mark? It could be that drunk guy in between, isn't it? It could be the lion in between. It could be another one of these good guys. But because we don't know who that person is in between, what's happened now is a question mark, isn't it? Who is this person, male or female, in between? Who's not? You understand? So now, would you accept this statement, like, for very important matters? Because we don't know who did she hear it from? Like, is that person who she heard it from? Is it somebody reliable, not reliable? Was it a liar, not a liar, a drunkard, not a drunkard? I'm not really sure I can accept, but there's a question mark. Okay? There's a missing link, unknown source. So the source is kind of known, this woman, but who she, the source is unknown. So now we've got a problem with this. Yes? Let's say we got the Guardian is saying something and the Sun is saying something. The Guardian newspaper is saying something and the Sun is saying something. Opposites. Who do you accept? The Guardian, the Sun, or the Daily Fail. Their reputation is known that they're not. So yeah, they're saying one thing. They're saying there were 10 people killed, or 10 people were murdered, or 10 people, or this happened. And the Guardian is saying something else. So we say, well, reputation-wise, the Guardian's got more reputation, wallahu alam. From what I understand, it's got better reputation than the Sun. So if two people are saying something contradictory, you say, well, what? It makes more sense to believe the Guardian because they got better reputation. Yes? So you've got stronger opposing evidence. So now we say, well, I want to believe what the Sun is saying, I believe what the Guardian is saying because they're more reputable. You understand? You following? So this is different things that we look at when we as normal human beings, logically, we analyze information. We look at this. Is it credible? Look at memory. Who is the sources? Is it linked? Is it, if somebody's saying two things that are contradictory, then who's more reliable? And let's say, for example, here, January 2022. What did he say? This guy is reliable. And he said, On Friday, 12th of January, 2022, I traveled to Mecca. Would you believe him? Why not? But he's an honest person. He doesn't lie. He's got a good memory. And nobody's saying no. But I think he made a mistake somewhere. It's possible he made a mistake. Even so, it doesn't mean that every person is so honest and credible. And sometimes maybe he meant Friday 21st, maybe. And in writing got mixed up. Maybe something's wrong here. We're not saying that he's not lying. He did go Makkah, but it can't be on the 12th. Or it can't be Friday. So something is a bit garbage here. There's something wrong in this. There's some kind of hidden, this is a bit of a problem. We trust him, but maybe he forgot. Or maybe he was so obsessed with Makkah, he forgot the date. Or maybe he meant February. Or maybe something's wrong in here. So he did go Makkah, we know that, but it can't be Friday 12th. Something missing here. Something doesn't add up. And this is the kind of things we have. Now based on this, when you have a hadith, you have the matan. So for a hadith to be authentic, there are certain conditions. What we've all explained in normal language before. Now, if we got those points in your mind, I'll be start analyzing next. We say, hey, look, the hadith, for it to be sahih and authentic, sahih means correct, and we can accept. It has to have all the things I mentioned above. Number one, it has to have ittisal. Remember that question mark, the missing link? It can't have a missing link because we don't know what that missing link is. Ittasala yattasilu ittisalan, to come together, to join together. Meaning, every narrator who narrates, she narrates from that person. We know that person. Everything is linked. There's no missing chain. Because any missing chain plus a question mark. Who said this? Okay, who is that person? So the first thing in the chain, you must have ittisal. What must you have? Ittisal. What does that mean? No missing link. Correct? Number two, you must have adala and you must have dhabt. What does adala mean? Credibility. Adala means what? Credibility. Remember that one guy's a drunk and one guy's a liar? We believe them? No. Dhabt. Remember the guy, Mr. Forgetful? So dhabt means preservation, recording. That he has the ability to record, meaning that person has the ability to preserve or record information, either by writing or text or pictures or camera, whatever. Obviously, in those times, they don't have cameras or pictures, but you get the idea. They have the ability to preserve information. We trust their preservation skills. Whether it's memory, whether it's writing, we can trust it. Yes? So the chain, collectively, we must know every single narrator and its link, no missing links. Number one, ittisal. Number two, they must be credible. Adala means must have credibility. And so this is the sanad collectively. Between each narrator, there must be a no missing link. And each narrator individually must have credibility, adala, and dhabt meaning the ability to preserve or memorize information correctly. Yes? You follow me? So those are the three conditions within the chain of narrators. And then there are two conditions within the text itself. Number one, it must not be guardian versus the son. Meaning, the two opposite narrating, but it must not be a weak, somebody stronger than you. Let's say I'm the son, and the guardian is saying something different. So if the narrator, the sanad is muttasil, there's adala dhabt, but somebody more reliable is saying something. That's called shuduz. I'll explain these terms a bit more. So there's no stronger evidence. Shuduz means you can't have shuduz. This is the bad quality. Shuduz means to have. It means what? That is what? Stronger opposing evidence. And illa is 21st of January, Friday. It's like or 12th. That there's something when you look at things on a whole, something's missing. Something's wrong in here, and there's no one fixed rule for this. It can be different situations. That there's some hidden defect. You understand? So for that man, when he said, I went to Makkah on 12th of Friday, 12th as well, I heard from him directly. The chain is reliable. He is a reliable person himself. He doesn't lie. He normally says things correctly. Nobody's saying otherwise, but we know from the calendar that he made some mistake somewhere or the other. So if these five conditions, ittisal, adala, dhabt, shuzuz, and illa, these five conditions are met, meaning you have these three and you don't have these two, then what do we say? The hadith is sahih. And I explain each one in a bit more detail. You understand? So ittisal means what? A what? Unbroken chain. What do you have? Unbroken chain. We have here credibility of all the narrators. And zabt, the preservation or recording skills of that narrator is good enough, is sufficient. We have contentment that that person can record. And there's no stronger opposing evidence. Stronger. What's happening here? Stronger opposing evidence. And illa means what? Some kind of hidden or discrete hidden fault, or yes. So, and I give the example like normal, it's logical. So that's the muhaddithun have also put these logical rules in place. You understand? So let's go through it more. Forget the guardian and the son and the woman and the man. Let's go through some proper examples. Now you understand the concept. Hadith muttasil. This is a hadith muttasil. Remember the son? What's the chain? Remember the chain? What's the chain we're going to go with? Al-Shafi'i an Malikin an Nafi'in an Abdullah ibn Umar radiyallahu anhu an Rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. That's our chain we're going to practice. We're going to use this for. So now we have here. We know that Imam Shafi'i met Imam Malik. Imam Malik narrates from Imam Nafi'. And Nafi' narrates Abdullah ibn Umar. And Abdullah ibn Umar met the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So is there any chain missing here? If you have this chain, what's happening in here? Tell me what's the problem in here? Because Imam Shafi never met Nafi'. You following? So Imam Shafi never met Nafi'. So now this is a missing chain. So it's called. So if it's hadith, the chain is unbroken, you call it hadithun muttasilun. Ittasala yattasilu ittisalan, to join, to come together. And inqata'a yanqati'u inqita'an, qata'a, to cut off, broken. This chain is broken because Imam Shafi never met Nafi'. So this is now a hadith munqati'. So now this has a fault. What's the fault? It's not muttasil. So this hadith is not going to be sahih. I said I'm doing very, very basic stuff, and we're not going to go through details and all analysis. We're just doing very basic things. Remember, so the hadith must be what? Muttasil. What must it be? Muttasil. And the opposite of muttasil is munqati'. Just call it munfasil, like zamir pronoun, muttasil and munfasil. But anyways, munqati'. Yes? So munqati' is broken, is cut off. You got it? Yes? So the two key words is what? For a hadith to be sahih, condition number one, it must be muttasil. There must be no missing links in between. Condition number two, the hadith must not be munqati'. Well, not condition number two, but opposite of muttasil is going to be what? Munqati'. Understood? And the next thing is what? The narrators themselves must be what? They must have adala. And adala means what? Adala, when we think adala, we think adala means justice. It doesn't mean, justice is a form of adala. But adal is the opposite of dhulm. And dhulm means what? Wrong. And really means anybody who conducts themselves in a way which the Sharia demands. Like they do the fara'id, they stay from wajibat, and they don't do anything dodgy. Like they're credible. So we can say here, for example, they're honest, they're upright, good reputation, honorable record. You understand? Decent people who you know they won't lie to you. Basically, their character is such that you know you can trust that they won't lie. Yes? That's what we call adala. And again, it's very basic. We'll go through more detail in the Nukhbatul Fikr later on. But for now, let's get the basic principles. So condition number one is what? It must be ittisal, the sanad must be muttasil. Number two, every narrator must have what? Adala. And the adjective is it must be adl. Yes? You following? Everybody in line following? Second thing is now, you must not have shuduz. And if you have shuduz, it's called shaz. The hadith must not be what? Shaz. What does this mean? Shaz means what? Individual, something against the rule, khilafun lil qiyas. This is called shuduz, and the hadith that has shuduz is called shaz. Do you understand? This is called what? Shaz. Okay? And what does it mean? Again, there's stronger contrary evidence. So even though he's saying one thing, he may be reliable, but more people are saying something different. Or somebody more reliable saying something different. you understand? Are you following? It's like, for example, let's say, for example, Mullah Shakir said to you that one thing, so he's reliable, he's credible. I said, this is a timetable. But I said something else. I'm not more credible because I got more, like, I'm in charge, and then I'm updating the timetable, I'm not about it. So, but even though he's credible, he's not going to lie, we know he's not going to say anything wrong, but maybe something happened that he didn't know about. So it's like, this is hadith is shadh, because somebody more credible said something. Or more, not credible, I won't say more credible than him, I'm saying, like, for example, more in the know-how. You get what I'm trying to say? Yes? So even itself is not a problem, but it's contrary to something more, a stronger evidence. So it's irregular, abnormal, unnatural, exception, queer, odd. You don't have to learn his English translation. Shaz is a term, like marfu, marfu means elevated or mansub. So he doesn't know what ittisal, muttasil, adala, and shudud. And illa, if hadith has illa, it's called hadith mu'allal. So illa, meaning it has an illa, and illa means a hidden defect. So this is wrong. This is wrong. This is a mistake here. It's copy and paste, get wrong. What does it mean? It has something in it. The hadith seems fine. Like when the pious man said to you, I went to Makkah on the 12th, Friday, 12th of, everybody's gonna know what is Friday and Wednesday in January 2020, remember that day. That Wednesday, he said, I went to Makkah on Friday, 12th of January. He said, no, Wednesday was the 12th, Friday the 21st. So he said, it looks sahih, isn't it? An honest man telling you something about himself, there's no missing chain, but because there's some kind of hidden defect, it looks like it's okay. But hadith has an illa. This narration or this story has an illa. It's mu'allal. Do you understand? Yes, has a defect, a flaw, a blemish, a shortcoming, something hidden which is not apparently. If you look at that story again, that the man said that story, without looking at the calendar, you wouldn't have any problem. You would think an honest man who has a good memory telling you something, it has to be true. When you look at the calendar, you realize, oh, something's wrong here. Do you understand? You get it? So let's before we go into the text, what's the summary? That for a hadith to be sahih, there must be how many conditions? There are 4 or 5. There are 5 conditions. 3 are to do with the chain, and 2 are to do with the text, mainly to do with text. What are the 3 to do with the? Again, I'm explaining very simply. You will see that there's more information to this later on. But for now, what are the 3 about the chain? The sanad must be what? What's the first word? Muttasil. Every narrator must narrate for somebody who they have met. There's no missing link in between. And each narrator must have 2 qualities. What are these 2 qualities? Adala, and number 2, dhabt. Adala means credibility. And dhabt means what? Memory preservation. Okay? Good. And then, after that, what do we have? 2 things to do with the text, mainly. It can be a chain as well, but for now we just keep it as text. What is it? It must not have shudud, and it must not have illa. What does shudud mean? It must not be contrary to stronger evidence. And illa, it must not have a hidden defect. So even though it may seem to be okay, but it's a hidden defect. Yes, and as I said before, just remember the same way we done like sughra, we're just putting basic terms in place. All of these have much more discussion. Everybody's watching and they say, well, I know you said different things. Just take it easy. We're just doing the very simple basics for now. On the next book, we'll go into more detail. So these are 5 basic preliminaries. And that's what he says in the next poem. So he said what in the previous poem? وَذِي مِنْ أَقْسَامِ الْحَدِيثِ إِدَّةً وَذِي مِنْ أَقْسَامِ الْحَدِيثِ إِدَّةً. So what are the أقسام الحديث? أولها الصحيح. The first of those type is sahih. أولها, the first of أقسام الحديث. So mubtada, the first of those is what? A hadithun sahihun. Again, those of you who can learn it, learn the text by heart, it's very useful. If you can't learn it by heart, at least remember the 5 things that like in your own words. And then here he's mentioning the 5 different principles. Number 1 is ma wa huwa. So really it's wa huwa. But when you do ilm al-arud and poetry, to make the pattern rhyme, you say it's supposed to be wa huwa, normal Arabic. But because of the pattern, you say wahwa. Because that would mean, because when you look at it here, like the next text is what? Like sukoon, mutaharrik sukoon, like that. So the tone will fit when you say wahwa, not wahuwa. So you say wahwa. In poetry, you can do that. So wahwa mattasal. What is it? What's ittasala? Mattasal isnaduhu. So here now. Wahwa, a hadith sahih is that. Number 1. Who's isnad? Isnad means what? Isnad mean? Isnad is a name for sanad. which means chain. So sanad, what's another name for sanad? Isnad. So whose chain is ittasal muttasil? That's condition number 1. Condition number 4 and 5 is what? Walam yashidda. Walam aw yu'alla. It is not what? Shadh, or it's not mu'allal. It does not have shuduz, it does not have illa. So number 1 and then number 4 and 5 according to ours. Yes? So the first type of hadith is sahih. Wahwa, it is that ittasal. Wattasal, that which is joint, connected. What's connected? Isnaduhu, is the fa'il. Whose chain is connected. Walam yashidda aw yu'al. It is not shaz, nor is it mu'alla. It does not have an illa. Yarwihi, rawa yarwi, narrate it. So the sahih hadith, the hadith, and adl. What's adl mean? Dhabit. These are the 2 adjectives of the word adala and zabt. And adlu, a person who has adala. Dhabit, a person who has zabt, the ability to preserve. So this person, these are the next qualities now. This is number 1. We have this number 4, number 5, and then this is what? Number 2 and number 3. A person who has adala and a person who has zabt, he narrates it. Yes? Correct? Who's narrated from? An mithlihi, from someone like him. Who's like him? Who's also adlun and zabit. So yarwihi, a person of adala and a person of zabt narrates it from someone just like him. And he explains it. What do you mean just like him? Mu'tamadun. What's i'tamada mean? To trust, to dependable. You can do i'timad upon them. They are dependable in their preservation and their narration. Preservation, and here narration. Again, a lot of work he adds in just to make it what? Add up. Are you following? But we've explained it before. So the part of the sanad we have here is what? So the first part we have here is awwaluha as-sahih. The first type is sahih, and that is that which is the chain is connected, and there's no shuduz, no illa, and an adil zabit narrates it from somebody just like him who is trustworthy in their zabt and their naql. Okay, let's stop here today, inshallah. Tomorrow we continue with the next part of the qisams. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So let's recap quickly. What are the 5 conditions for the Sahih Hadith? There are 5 conditions. So how do you summarize these 5 conditions? There's 1 for the entire chain. What's the condition for the entire chain? The entire chain must be what? It must have a continuous link, which is called what? The sanad. The sanad must be muttasil. Correct? Then for each of the individual narrators, for the sanad, the 2 things. Collectively, the sanad must be muttasil. And each of the narrators must have which 2 qualities? The 2 qualities must be, they must be adl and they must be dhabit. They must have adl, adala and dhabt. Yes, adala, credibility, and dhabt, the ability to preserve. So these are the 3 conditions regarding the chain. Number 1 is to do with the entire chain, and number 2 to do with the individual members of the chain. And the next 2 is to do with the matan primarily, which is what? There must be no shuduz, meaning it is no stronger contrary evidence, and illa, there's no hidden defect. These are the 5 conditions. Correct? Okay. Now, regarding zabt, meaning the ability to preserve, the ability to memorize and preserve and record the information, we're going to, this one here, we're going to have a look at this. We're going to say, if all of the narrators, and remember, the key is, we judge a hadith by the weakest link. Yes? We judge a hadith by the weakest link. So, look at the weakest rawi. If all of the rawi, all of the narrators, what are they? Grade A, meaning a very high quality of dhabt. What is it? What do you mean by grade A? I said we do baby stuff here. So for now, this accept this can be called grade A. What are the words for grade A, and how do we analyze grade A? How do we know it's grade A? That's this next level. So, but if all of the narrators are grade A, this would be hadithun sahih. Correct? As we mentioned before. Does that make sense? Everybody following me online? Yes? So the sanad is muttasil, the narrators are credible, and all of them have a grade A dhabt. We just said dhabt before, but let's change that now and modify and say if it's grade A dhabt. Automatically now, what's the question going to be? What if it's what? If it's a grade B dhabt? If the zabt becomes grade B, meaning, if remember, but sometimes, or we say grade B. What is grade B zabt mean? We do that in a higher level. But for now, let's understand if it's grade B zabt. We see the hadith is not sahih, but the hadith is going to be what? Hasan. Hasan means what? Just below grade B hadith, basically. Meaning not the hadith itself, but the way it has reached us. Does this make sense? So there are 5 conditions for sahih hadith. And in zabt, the zabt must be grade A. And the same condition applies for Hasan, but the zabt doesn't have to be grade A. The minimum requirements of all the narrators is what? A grade B zabt. Does that make sense? Yes, everybody following online? And if the zabt goes below C, then this hadith becomes what? What does it become? Da'if. So do you understand the 3 levels? Sahih, Hasan and Da'if. Similarly, if we have a defect in any of the other 4, it's also Da'if. Maybe the son is not muttasil, there's a missing link. That's also Da'if. The rawi is not adal. That's also Da'if. It has a shuduz, it is shadh, it is also Da'if. That it has an illa, it also becomes Da'if. Do you understand? So in summary, there are 5 conditions. The sanad must be muttasil, all the narrators must be adal, and the rawi must be grade A dhabt. It must not have shudud, it must not have illa. That becomes a hadith sahih. If the rawi's dhabt is grade B, we call that in Arabic khafif. Grade B, khafif, light dhabt, meaning slightly, you say here is what? Khafif. If the dhabt is khafif, light, meaning grade B, that's what they say in Arabic, the mustalah. If it's khafif al-dhabt, meaning the grade B dhabt, then hadith becomes what? Hasan. And if the grade, if the grade, the dhabt is a grade C dhabt or lower, and or if any of the other 4 have a defect, any of the other 4 conditions are not found, it becomes what? Da'if. Understood?
What do you call
So any of these 5, so if you have a grade C level dhabt, or any of the other 4, then all of them da'if, then each of them have particular names. We'll do that later on. If the son is muttasil, not muttasil, then it has some particular names. If there's no adal, then it has a particular name. If it's shuduz, it has a particular name. But they're all da'if. Do you understand? Yes? Or there's different words for it. Yes? There's many words, so I don't want to give you too many words at one time. Have you understood so far? So the question is, if there's a weakness in the dhabt, but see, there's 2 levels of, what do you mean by weakness? Remember, the dhabt has 3 aspects. Top grade dhabt, that's sahih. Good dhabt, that's hasan. And weak dhabt, and other any 4 is da'if. Is that clear? Yeah? Yeah. How do you measure the rawi dhabt? That's something we'll do later on. We'll do that later on, inshallah. How do we know the dhabt? And that's ilm al-jarh wa ta'dil. We'll do that later on, inshallah. Okay? Yes, I know probably a lot of questions, but what we can do now is try to keep it as simple as possible. How do we know the dhabt? We just do taqleed for now. That somebody said to us he's A, B, C, we'll accept it for now. And how do you figure out and all that's another science called jarh wa ta'dil. We'll do that later on, inshallah. So these 3 terms, have you got it? Yes? Now this is the poem regarding Hasan. So والحسن is mubtada. Al-Hasanu al-ma'rufu turqan. And that turqan is tamyiz. It means tariq, meaning chain. Again, this means a chain. So a Hasan is that, and this is tamyiz, meaning, because I said before, they change the style in poems just to make it rhyme, etc. So a Hasan, ma'ruf means to be known, arafa ya'rifu, to recognize. So a Hasan is that hadith whose chain is known, meaning all the other conditions are met. Correct? Wa ghadat. Ghadat means here, ghada yaghdu, came yesterday, to set off in the afternoon. And here it means kanat. Ghada means kana, and it means are. So والحسن المعروف طرقا وغدا. So this is first part. So Hasan is that hadith whose ways and whose chains are known. وَغَدَتْ, and here's kana in the meaning of present tense. Within Balagha, you can use kana in the meaning of present tense. وَغَدَتْ رِجَالُهُ لَا كَالصَّحِيح. This is like, count it as one. لَا كَالصَّحِيح. And ishtaharat. And who's rijal? What does rijal mean? Men, meaning narrators. Narrators. Okay? You following? وَغَدَتْ, and its narrators, ishtaharat, are known. We know who they are. But لَا كَالصَّحِيحِ. So they are not like they are not the grade A like the Sahih hadith. Do you understand? So we know the chain, we know the narrators, but these narrators are la ka Sahih. They are not like Sahih narrators. They're not grade A, they're grade B. Do you understand? So again, as I said, for the poem, because it's a poem, they don't really like. It's not like every single word has this particular, like so definite, like It's just like they made the poem, so it just flows. So you don't have too particular a translation. Even if the translation I gave you is not too particular. I mean, it's good to have the translation correctly, but sometimes it's hard to fit it in because the maqsood is to make a nice rhyme, so you just learn it off by heart. So basically, the four, like what I mentioned before, it has the 5 conditions of Sahih, but the Zab becomes what? Level is grade B. Okay, so its turuq, its chains are known, and its men, meaning its narrators, are known, but not on the same level of Sahih. وَكُلُّ مَا عَنْ رُتْبَةِ الْحَسَنِ قَصْرٌ. This is mubtada. And every hadith, kullu ma, and every hadith, qasura. This is the muta'alliq, or this is the maf'ul fiya, maf'ul bihi of qasr. So every hadith, qasura, which falls short. So every hadith which falls short from the rutbah, the level. So every hadith which falls short of the hasan. فهو الضعيف, this is the khabar. And because it has the meaning of a shart, you can put the fa. Yes, within the nahu. فهو الضعيف, it is ضعيف. So how does it fall short of hasan? It falls short in the dhabt, or it falls short in the other 4 qualities. وهو أقسام كثر. And these are what? Many types, because there's a separate name. If the sanad is not muttasil, there's a name for that, and there's different types of the chain being broken. If the rawi is not adil, there's different types of that. If there's illa, there's different types of that. If there's shudud, different types of that. وهو أقسام كثر, the many types of da'if. Do you understand? Okay. Yes. What was it? So let's look at one. So as I said before, I want you to learn a few chains, maybe 3, 4 chains, so that you can practice using those. So what's the chain that we learned about the Sahih Rawi? The one of the strongest Sahih chains. What was it? Ash-Shafi'i al-Malik أخبره عن نافع عن عبد الله بن عمر رضي الله تعالى عنه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال. What's the hadith? You never said the hadith. صلاة الجماعة تفضل على جماعة الفضل ب27 درجة. So you have one sanad and one matan. Do the practice. We're going to learn one Hasan sanad as well, so we can use it. What's the Hasan sanad? An Amr ibn Shu'ayb an abihi an jaddihi qala Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So it's basically very easy. Amr ibn Shu'ayb, he narrates from his father, and his father narrates from his grandfather. I'll explain the next slide. Let's learn this one. An Amr ibn Shu'ayb an abihi an jaddihi. This is Hasan. Why? Again, if you've studied usul hadith before, etc., you're an expert, then don't come jumping at me. But Amr ibn Shu'ayb, we just accept for now that Amr ibn Shu'ayb is Hasan. Like his zabt is level B. There's ikhtilaf and all that kind of stuff, but no time for that at the beginning level. So, but for now, we say Amr ibn Shu'ayb, we've come to the conclusion level B zabt. Okay? Let's accept this for now at this level. So he's Amr ibn Shu'ayb, he's a level B zabt, grade B zabt, so therefore this hadith is going to be what? What kind of hadith is it going to be? Hasan. Because everybody else is level A, they're all good. And the hadith is, لا تنتف الشيب فإنه نور المسلم. Don't pluck out white here, because it is the nur and the light of a believer. Okay? So what's the Hasan? Amr ibn Shu'ayb and Abihi and Jaddihi قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لا تنتف الشيء فإنه نور المسلم. Now just to understand this, who is it? This is quite a common chain as well, just to understand it. Okay. Again, this is just extra, so that you can refer back to it easier. So Amr ibn Shu'aib is one person, yes? You following here? Amr ibn Shu'aib. Who did he narrate from? It's a family chain. Who did he narrate from? His father. Who's his father? Shu'aib. And his name is Shu'aib. And do you know Amr ibn al-As radiallahu anhu? Remember in Sirah? Amr ibn al-As, Khalid ibn Walid. So Amr ibn al-As radiallahu anhu, his son's name is Abdullah. He narrated many hadiths. And his son's name is Muhammad. But Muhammad, he passed away quite young, you don't have any narration from him. And Abdullah ibn Amr radiallahu anhu, his grandson is Shu'aib. And his son is Amr. So Amr ibn Shu'aib narrates from his father. Who's his father? Shu'aib ibn Muhammad ibn Abdullah ibn Amr al-As radiallahu anhu. He narrates from his grandfather, who's not Amr al-As, it's a mistake. Abdullah ibn Amr al-As. Abdullah ibn Amr al-As, my mistake. Abdullah ibn Amr al-As. That's a mistake there, yes? It's not Amr al-As, it's Abdullah ibn Amr al-As. From Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. You understand? So Amr ibn Shu'aib, he narrates from his father, whose name is Shu'aib ibn Muhammad ibn Abdullah ibn Amr al-As radiallahu anhu, who narrates from his grandfather, his father, he narrates from his grandfather, who is what? Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As radiallahu anhu. So keep this sanad in your mind as well. So we have two sanad we have to keep in mind. Again, this is a practice. So one is the Shafi, Malik, Nafi, Abdullah ibn Umar Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam sanad. The second one is Amr ibn Shu'aib, from his father Shu'aib ibn Muhammad, from his grandfather who is Abdullah ibn Amr al-As radiallahu ta'ala, from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And we said because him, we're just going to accept for now, he's a grade B narrator. So his hadith is going to be Hasan. Understood? So we'll use those hadiths later on in practice with other examples. Okay? Everybody following? Any questions? Okay. Let's recap quickly. What's a hadith? What's a hadith? What's a hadith? It's made up of a sanad and is made up of a matn. What's a sanad? Chain of narrators. Online as well, good. Chain of narrators. What's a matn? The text. What's a hadith sahih? What's a hadith sahih? Yeah. So let's just say there are how many conditions for sahih hadith? There are five. The sanad must be what? The chain must be muttasil, meaning every narrator must have heard from the person above him directly, no breakage. And the opposite of muttasil is going to be munqati. So let's learn that word in between as well. So sanad is muttasil, meaning it's not munqati, there's no breakage. Every narrator must be adl. What does adl mean? Credible. They must have dhabt. And this is what kind, when it says dhabt, what kind of dhabt must they have? Grade A dhabt. And lam yashidda wa lam aw yu'al. There's no shudud or there's no illa. So 5 conditions. These are the conditions of individual narrators, condition of the chain collectively, and this is condition of the matan usually. What's the hadith hasan? Hadith hasan? Yes. All the other conditions are met. 4 conditions are met, but the zabt is a grade B zabt. And we say here khafiful zabt. And the da'if is basically where any of them have a problem. And the zabt is grade C or lower, and any of the other 4 have a problem, it becomes da'if. And da'if has many types, and as we progress in the poem, we'll learn more types of da'if. Okay? Good? Go ahead. As I said, how do you classify grade A? How do you classify grade B? We'll do that that needs a bit more explanation. But if we go into that now, we'll have a digression and it'll get too deep and confusing at the moment. So basically, you're asking me balagha stuff, and we're still doing nahwa. So it's a good question, but it's level 2 stuff. I don't want to introduce a lot of things I'm missing out. I'm not missing out, I'm just consciously saying, okay, it's not in the matan. We're just doing the matan because I said before, I just want to have it very simple. So at least the basics are in place. Then we can go into everything in detail. Zabt in detail, sanad muttasil in detail, shudud in detail. There are books and books on ilal. What's the illah? Okay, so we're just touching that iceberg because ideally right now all we want to do is learn some basic terminologies. So then now we have a good overview of the science, and then we can start going into more detail second time round. We're going to finish the book. It's a very easy book. 2-3 weeks we finish, inshallah. Understood? So good question, but we'll leave it for next level, inshallah. Anything else? Any other questions? Okay. Subhanallah wa bihamdi, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika wa nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.